Hey everybody, another week, another Webflow SEO live stream on Content Nest. I'm your host, Serge Sorian, and I'm so excited to be here again after last week. My dog died, so it was a little bit of a not gonna be feeling amazing to show up, but this week we're back and we're gonna be chatting. We don't have a guest this week, so we will be just digging into one of the topics and seeing what we can learn and just like kind of rerunning some of the old stuff that we already spoke many times prior, maybe more in depth, and just trying to find ways how to describe certain things and how to patternize how websites operate and overall like what needs to be on a website, what kind of pages do we need, what kind of things we need to think about, how different projects or different client builds or different other stuff affect the website build. And the most hardest thing of them all is how to balance the need with return of investment, the capacity for your clients, both in how much they're paying and in general, like the value that can be expected. And so things like that. Those who already are watching this, please do comment and just say hello. And we're gonna. I'm excited to be here again. Missed you all. So like always, when the stream is this kind of casual and I'm just alone here, it's very likely that if you guys have any specific questions or if you have any specific ideas or want me to look at something, we can go on tangents, and we're just gonna be a little bit off topic or on topic, but in a like specific scenario. So if you're working on something, want to share something, or want to just ask very specific questions, these streams when I'm just alone are the best ones. I want to keep it this way. I want to always kind of be, hey, let's look into real life examples, or let's try to kind of think together about certain problems you might be having or anything. So today is perfect day for that if you're here. And hey, Sergey, nice to have you here. Miss you so much. All right, guys. So let's jump into the Figma board. Like always, we're just going to be thinking about... one second, let me prepare myself. Yeah, all good, should be good. All right. So for those that are first time here, we don't have a guest today, as just I said. So I'm our guest today. So ask me any questions you want. And then another thing, a reminder for those first time or not knowing, we're a team of SEO and content professionals that specialize only in Webflow builds. If you're a developer or designer, you can check out we kind of have an affiliate program, and we work with provide custom help for different agencies and professionals and solopreneurs and developers based on what kind of clients they have, or directly work with their clients. And we have like specialized plans, but most clients we work with, we usually make like some sort of custom plan. So yeah, and I'm Serge Sorian. Also, my name is Aiva, but everybody's used to calling me Serge Sorian, and I'm host of this weekly SEO live stream. So our today's topic is, what websites must have. How to scope and set goals is kind of a side topic out of it. So I mentioned it here, but in theory, we just should be looking at different types of pages that every website must have or must think about, because our slogan is like, websites are never done, and I've never met a scenario where like the website is done. So we're just going to be chatting about it, and I'll try to keep an eye on the comment section. So if anybody has anything to kind of ask, please do so. It's really helpful for me, and it's easier when some interaction is happening, then it's easier to kind of go on tangents and just kind of dive deeper into something quite specific. Then we would do a tangent alert, and then we would just try to look into it. So yeah, all right, let's dig into it. So I prepare a little bit of stuff to kind of look through. Because fundamentally, when we're planning a site, we're kind of using 3-click crawling kind of budget / anatomy thing, which basically means that we have our homepage. I can even make this homepage. And then everything from the homepage has to be reachable by less than 3 clicks. So if I go to here, that's 1 click, here 2 clicks, and each one of these would be 3rd click, right? So whenever we plan any pages, regardless of whether or not they're made for directly SEO or more user experience or conversion or information or to show case studies, which is completely like content-based pages or blog or whatever it might be, it always has to be 3 or less clicks away from the homepage. So that's why the bigger the website we make, the more rules we have to set for ourselves. And of course, the more internal links we need to have on each page to support this logic. Now, for those who don't know why we need to do that, is because when search engines are crawling our website, they need to understand how everything is connected to everything. And if you have a website that is designed in a way where there's more than 3 layers of depth, crawlers have more difficult time both crawling it and maintaining understanding of how everything is connected to everything. And another thing is that, right. So, and another thing is that if we have a link from one page to another, doesn't matter what kind of link it is. It can be a card link or in context, like inside rich text blog, just like the typical your typical average link. What happens is this connection. Oops. All right, wait 1 sec. So this connection between them provides context, right? So that's one of the reasons why we need to do it in that way, because whenever we link to something, we use some sort of anchor texts. That's one of the reasons why we should always avoid using links like, using links like learn more or find out more or, things like that are not non-descriptive of what's in that page that we're linking in. So Webflow makes it easier to, just use a link block, wrap around the whole card or things like that. So everything that's inside that link kind of provides some sort of context. And when it's, especially when it's within a text, so for example, there's just a link inside a paragraph, crawlers also tend to take into consideration some of the context that is before the link itself and afterwards. So basically, let's think crawler will take into account 1 or 2 sentences before and after that link to kind of get a better understanding. So this brings us to the mandatory and must-haves and nice-haves for any Webflow build, and I'll be checking in on comments. Nobody said anything, so if you want to add something or have ideas or want me to just kind of look into specific or just provide me with a specific scenario, we're good to go. I made this kind of scenario, which is some sort of a hybrid between SaaS and agency and content side, something like this, along those things. So, but we'll be looking into it, but also like anything more specific, maybe you're working on something or you want to share. So yeah, so coming back to the mandatory must-haves, nice-haves, and things like that, I would say while preparing to this, I came up with these 3 kind of categories of different pages that websites usually have. Depending on, I could imagine multiple ways to recategorize this. So let's take this with a grain of salt and just, be kind of, for the sake of purpose of this stream, I think it's a good enough, but we can really rethink this in many ways. And I would be, maybe as the time passes, I will have eventually, months and years from now, a better explanation than that. But in theory, I would say there's like these three types that matches what we're going to be touching on later. So user experience pages are those pages that, they're not optimized for SEO, but they're mandatory to control user flows, right? And they also have some connection to, it can be to conversion rate optimizations, or, so for example, case studies is a good example. Like, it's not a page that will ever rank for anything, unlikely. Like, in theory, it could rank for your agency name or your product or your SaaS or whatever. But so that name plus specific company or specific thing you did or something, and if you become big enough, that would result in having a keyword, which is your brand name plus some sort of specific thing that you're talking on that page. But in theory, these pages are more needed for visitors that are visiting, vetting processes, and a lot of other stuff. So, and homepage in many cases, if the build has at least a few CMSs, and especially if it has like a few clusters, usually your homepage, not necessarily will be actually optimized for anything, but it has to work as a page that solves two things. If anybody finds out about your company, about your product, about your software, about your service, about your startup or anything, and they just look for your type in into search engines the name or the brand itself, they will land in your homepage. That's for sure, right? So you're kind of optimizing for that. This allows us to be more flexible with headings. This allows us, but also the only thing we have to do is make sure that that page has a lot of internal links in it. So that's always the issue of homepage, just because, as I just said, that whole three-click rule for crawling forces us to have quite a lot of links in the homepage. And this doesn't mean that you have to link everything. So, for example, you don't need to link, maybe 3 layers deep directly on your homepage. It's better, and in some cases it makes a lot of sense. But in theory, you just want to make sure that everything that needs to be linked at least once here in order to sustain this logic of not having 4th layer is accomplished. So yeah, that's pretty much it, right? And also we have to understand that as we just spoke, that hyperlinks provide context for pages. So not only, this basically means that whenever page ranks for a specific keyword or better search intent, it answers the query itself with the content that is on that page. But when rating which pages should show up higher or lower, search engines will also still take into consideration contexts that came from other pages. So another example would be, we had another page and it also provided us context about this page, but maybe different type of context. So all that is taken into consideration. That's why to rank one page, you usually need more pages than that one, because everything surrounding your surrounding pages in your website also help that page grow, and that's what turns SEO into this kind of math and magic area when you're designing websites that can have pages that will rank for specific search intents and will usually result like in very specific already determined leads or buyers or anything else. There's a lot of other pages that need to be created just to support that one. And when you could start connecting everything together, it becomes, quite complex. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm going to check on the comments. Hey, Raymar, and hey, Omkar, hey, everybody. Yeah, Sergey saying there's going to be some questions a little bit later. All right. So keep them coming, anybody, if you have any ideas for what we're talking about here. Or off topic, when I'm solo, it's really good on, just kind of go on very, very simple tangents, and, that's simple. All right. So coming back to what we were chatting about. So in theory, we have UX pages that are more for, not for search engines, but for actual human interaction, which, by the way, there's no big difference. Pages that are optimized for humans will rank better than pages that are optimized for crawlers, or search engines in general. So usually that whole optimization difference between UX page and actual some sort of SEO optimized page is way below the fold. So you can still control above the fold. Of course, headings and have to be specific, and content has to be specific, and certain words have to be mentioned. But usually if you're actually answering and being helpful and actually trying to solve the problem that people will have behind that search intent, it's very rare that you have to stuff any words in it, or you just might need to polish it up a little bit, but it's never that, oh, I haven't even touched on that. Because if you're really being helpful, everybody tends to use the same language, and that language is made of words, and words are keywords. So that's that. Content pages, I would say these are something that is kind of blogs, and case studies again come to mind, and different types of content that can be and will be published on your site. So it depends on the strategy itself. It depends on the industry. It depends on the website types. It depends on the amount of resources you have, and it depends on amount of content you have. But there are that type of thing. So, for example, if you have a podcast, each podcast episode might have a content page where you're just gonna be, /episode/episode name, and then you would just write down or write a summary what that podcast was about. So it's very different. It's not only the blog, and it's not only blog posts or articles, like I like to call them, because they are articles. But yeah, so that's that type of thing. And these content pages usually have some sort of, SEO value, and should have some logic behind it. But that also depends. There are things like case studies that can be easily mixed up, but then usually it kind of goes more onto that side. Like a good example would be if you're like an agency or a software, and you have multiple industries that can use your software. You might have those industry CMS that has pages for different industries that might be using, or even different types of professionals that could be using your services or your software. In that case, this could become either, but usually then it would move to UX pages, because it's more about oriented to a very specific user that landed on your homepage or landed anywhere else on your website from search, and just want to check out what your software or what your agency or team can offer them as a specific, accountant or business owner or something specified. And then offer pages are, services, features, basically, products, if it's an e-commerce store, even product categories, and we're going to touch on that whole categorization later down the road. So these are those pages that, actually want to try to make the conversion, and ideally they can rank for the conversion term itself. So for example, most of us have some sort of Webflow development, Webflow design services or something that are watching this. This means that, for example, if somebody types in, Webflow website development, they find you, they click on it, and then they convert to, they become a lead for you. And that button where, if you have a product and you sell shoes, then you would click on and buy them. And in your case, you would click and fill out a form, and you would have a lead that way. So it's easy to understand how it's just completely about solving the problem. Offer pages are completely optimized just to solve somebody's problem, and problems are search intent, because actually when you think about it, when you type in things to search engines, you have questions, problems, things like that. So by default, when somebody types in, something shoes, they might land there and just click buy, and that's the most easier way to understand. But also any service that you provide, especially when subdivided into smaller parts, can be that. And another great example for software websites is your features of your software are these offer pages, because they solve a specific pain point for your visitor, and that's why you make it. And that's how you should think about these things. So last thing that I put aside are legal pages. I'm gonna, for the simplicity of this, if anybody's watching this later, just keep in mind we're not gonna touch on privacy policies, terms and conditions, things like that. So those would be legal pages, but also contact pages, I would assume, are legal, especially because they require certain information to be showcased there. It's mandatory for search engines to understand that this is a real company, this is a real solopreneur, this is a real freelancer, this is a real product, this is a real thing. So there are a lot of things that need to be done for that, but we're gonna skip that because that's usually just a thing that you must have. So this comes to must-haves, but we're putting this on side because they're just different for different types of businesses, and they're business specific. If you're a lawyer, you will need different types of legal pages than just mommy blog would need, and so it's so niche specific that it's hard to define what needs to be there. But there are very general rules. So yeah, so we mentioned that. All right, let's check up on the comments. Nobody said anything. So if anybody has any questions or ideas, just drop by in the comment section. We're gonna look through them. And as I said, today is a great day because I'm alone, so I can always go deeper into any kind of specific question you have, or specific kind of scenario that you're facing, or anything like that. All right. Coming back to the board. All right. So after touching on this, we can come back to our 3-click rule, and then I tried to categorize this to as simple cluster and as most adaptable cluster as I can, because different builds would have very different things written here, and different businesses would have different things and category. So for that simplicity, I try to be as vague as possible with this, but also incorporate as much as possible to kind of have a most coherent picture we can have. Because this logic, which is quite simple by default, can be translated into so many different variations based on both goals, based on pages, and based on a lot of things, right? So yeah, with that disclaimer out of the way, so I have three most common content cluster setups that I'm kind of used to reusing through different clients, and it's usually, the pattern is usually quite similar. So let's start with the obvious one, and that obvious one is, of course, your content side for blogs. So a lot of developers and designers would just throw in which one would be this CMS. They would, oh wait, sorry, my bad, not this one. All right, so I come across a lot of builds where it's just this made, and let's put it aside a little bit and talk about it. All right, so in many cases, I find it to be not the article or post. By the way, I use post just because WordPress is used to, we are used to call them posts in WordPress back in the day, but it doesn't make sense in Webflow world where anything can be an article, and things go way much more complex than that. But I usually find it to be just, a blog CMS that is just that typical article design in it. There's a rich text block, there's a few fields, there's the thumbnail image for your article. That's that, and we have collection pages for different articles. I'm going to just add a CMS here, just going to be more Webflow specific. And then it's just, that's that. It might be that there's like a categorization for posts added, so like a drop-down field within the CMS that kind of lists out all the categories, but that's pretty much it. And that's the most common kind of thing I find, which is, a good start, but it misses a lot of supporting pages. Remember, we were talking about this. Things give context to other things, and that's how you build your site. It kind of misses on that. And the only difference is that actually it's possible not using any Webflow features, that's just using rich text blocks to kind of bypass this in a way and just publish articles, do insanely good internal linking inside that rich text block, which is your article, and call it a day, and it works. So it's doable. This way is doable, but usually people choose Webflow not because they want to be very meticulous and programmatic with how they produce content, especially knowing that, typical page might have, from 30, 50, if it's a small site, to a few hundred internal and or some of them external links within the page. And it's a common practice to have, and it's mandatory for a lot of different types of content that might show up on this article page. So that's why there's two missing pages that have to be designed and developed and created. And those are usually author and blog category. So I love to call blog, can I cross out this? I think I can. It's like this, and then, So I like to change blog to actual categories. So in this case, if we have, we can have a blog for category for, Webflow, for Webflow designers. And then we can have one for design. And then we can have another for development. So I like to call, blog category just blog. And again, I'm just going to cross this one out because that should not be the preferred way. And this way we, kind of have blog categories that are landable, and that explains different types of content that we have. So it allows us to kind of group articles together. And don't forget that we're doing this because otherwise, when there's a few hundred blog posts on our blog, when somebody goes to our, let me add a static page. Right, so of course, we're just talking CMSs here, but we will have a static page, right? And one sec, right, here you go. So we would have always a static page, and I'm just gonna add the, So we will always have a blog page that would have all this listed out in that typical manner. So in this example, this would be the blog, right? I'm just going to be changing this as we go, and this would be different blog categories, right? Okay, so we can go from homepage to blog. We don't need to list out categories themselves on the homepage this way, but we can go to blog and then reach different articles with less than 3 clicks, right? So that's why we do it. And that's why we need categories. So otherwise, if we don't have blog categories, we don't give supporting context for articles that would explain that these articles are similar to these by being in the same category. And this is helpful for many reasons, both from UI UX and from crawling and search engine perspectives. So we want to have that. Otherwise, our blog will just be a list of 300 blog posts. There's no way to sort it because otherwise they disappear. Like if we give any rules that would, stop us from stop us from showing more than, I don't know, 9 most recent blog posts. Eventually what happens is some blog posts are what we call orphan pages, and orphan pages are very bad for SEO because this shows to search engines that, so you don't care about this page enough to even link to it anywhere on your website, meaning it's not valuable. So ranking articles that are orphaned are really, can be really hard, and this is just a typical technical SEO error that most tools will show to you. Yes, there is a way, again, to be very meticulous with your internal linking, which you will be anyways doing for articles. So yeah, all right, I'm gonna take a quick sip and we come back if anybody has. Hey Maria, nice to have you here. Hi everybody. So just a reminder while I take this sip is that if anybody has any questions or wanna suggest a specific idea, let's do this. Because today is, my solo day, which basically means tangents are very, very available and we can do that, so I love going on tangents on these streams. That's why they're live and so flexible. Yeah. So coming back to that, the only next thing we always have to have is authors, and that's it can be team or profession. There's many ways to formulate this, but authors are mandatory. And let me grab this for you guys. So with recent changes, especially with advent of AI, authors, and start designing this, just start putting clonables, guys, please, of this, where it's not one author and it can be connected not only to one CMS, but to multiples. And like, for example, you have specialists that are supporting specialists, but you also have team members, which I kind of will touch on later here, where we have a team and we have also, industry, guest stars or something that help us with our content. So that's like a very, very great way to have 2 different CMSs, one for actual team members and one for, writers that might join in or other types of people that might be showing up on your website. That's because with the current advent of AI, the only way to prove that your content is authentic and written by some humans, and EEAT is a thing. I'm just gonna, those who don't know. So this is a concept that explains that all the content, what Google is trying to understand on your website is that what Google is trying to understand is that everything on this website is legit and not just somebody wrote this without understanding what they're doing. So they want to find proof of experience, and they want to find proof of expertise in the field, and they want to find proof on, trust, that they can trust your site. So this is what it actually stands for. And it basically means that whenever you want to publish any type of content on your site, and we're talking more on a blog site, but it can be done on other, you want to show that these are real people with real experiences and real some sort of input. And that goes both for within the content itself, the way you write, what kind of words you use, what kind of images you use, but also very importantly goes to actual who wrote this, who reviewed this, who approved this, and a lot of other things. So designing this kind of author section for every blog is very mandatory, and also linking to their social media. You know what? I'm going to actually jump there. This is all right. So this was services and service. I think that's the only thing we have to change. So what happens is you need to have pages with where you list out your guests, your whoever you can, to kind of show that whoever was working together with you on that has social media, was somewhere, works somewhere, does something, and you have to link to all of that. So there's a lot of, this is going to be the new meta in the content, especially during AI. It was a normal practice for a few years for your money, your life niches, like, finance, medicine, and niches where wrong advice can hurt you as a human, either your health or your wallet. But this is becoming normal because with advent of AI, anybody can mimic any type of content and crawl pages and just produce it. But this is going to be the new normal. It already is. So this is going to be the only way. And Google recently kind of introduced the author checkup on content. So you can, before even clicking on a link, you can press on 3 dots and kind of check up who wrote this. And this has to do with implementing author schema markup or just, structured data. So there's a lot of things to discuss here, but we're not going to dip into deep. If any of those words didn't make any sense, you can ask questions. And yeah. So Sergey is saying it's like my math class. I recognize the numbers, but didn't get the formula. Yeah, it kind of is. So I'll try to run through. If you have any specific kind of formula you don't get, let's chat about it, man. I would really love to kind of answer anything very specific, but fundamentally the formula is quite simple. There's always 3 clicks from homepage, and you have to understand that in most cases, the biggest error I see when clients decide what they need, their websites look something like this. Or sometimes designers can decide for them, right? It's some sort of okay, I'm gonna delete this one. It's some sort of a variation of this instead of this. So when we have a very structured way of planning for growth, we know that these will be issues. But yes, in the beginning, many clients and many don't have need for all of that, but it still has to be embedded in the structure from the get-go. Otherwise, we are kind of planning for failure or a lot of redirects or planning for a lot of things, It's like, so I would say it's like knowing that you will having a full menu one day in your restaurant, even though if you start serving only soup and tea because you only have one big pot for soup and you can only make tea, you don't even have a coffee machine yet, but just kind of understanding that all this is coming, maybe in 5 years, maybe in 3 months, it's the only way to kind of structure sites. Or we will have to redesign the whole, cafeteria just because nobody thought about what's going to happen. Yeah, it kind of is. I like to use sitemap architecture just because when people say, wait, I had this, let me fetch this for you guys. 1 second. It kind of is, but at the same time, there's more complexity to that if you want to make it for SEO. In some cases, wait, I had a graphic that I made specifically for this. Here we go. I'm going to just fetch it from another Figma board. And here you go. So, yeah. So when I think about designer information architecture, sorry for the bad design, I think we all kind of imagine this kind of blocks, what leads to what's going to be there, what kind of image will be there. When I think about content strategy, I know that each page will have 20, 30, 200 links and I have to understand what it links to make sense. So that's how you make this kind of, topical tree of everything that is there. And because you need to show to crawlers what's important to what's important for what topics. And that's why you plan things in bulk, not by one. So does that kind of, is that what you mean? And because I know I also think the same way. And I think the most magical moments in my work practices happen when these two people meet and they find common ground in the middle. Because then we get like an amazing UI that, especially above the fold and scrolling a little bit lower, we have this kind of very awesome design that actually is helpful for people, right? While at the same time, we have like other parameters that are a little bit more just kind of over obsessing about, structures and things like that. So yeah, I hope that. Yeah, if anybody has any follow-ups or ideas, just drop them in. I'm really curious of where we can move this conversation flowing. So yeah, so with that being said, right, this blog article, so blog category, article, and author, 3 main parts, and a static page that kind of groups them together. And of course, we can have a few other, for example, we might want to have a page for all authors, so it's a static and whatever, right? But now, this structure is actually, when you think about it, is the same as e-commerce. It's nothing different. Every e-commerce website you ever visited had this, or even more, a few more CMS next to it structure. Because you have product page, which in this case would be article, right? You have the product category, which in this case would be blog itself, blog types itself, right? And you have some sort of maybe sorting type of secondary category or top level category or whatever, or on the flip side, subcategory if it goes as sub nested. So, so that's what happens when you start thinking about it. It's always running on the same logic. You have to have the sum element of everything. So there's like a product itself, the end game conversion thing. It can be article, it would be service or feature on software or service in agency. It would be product in an e-commerce store, or it would be an article in a very good blog, right? Then we have a way to sort that thing into some sort of groups. So product category is a good example, but we also miss usually that then we need services or features, again, features for software, services for agencies, to also have that kind of category. And what usually happens, especially for smaller builds, is we forget that this exists and we just make our service or feature group our main thing. So this example would be, we have, a web design, Webflow, agency, and it kind of just makes 2 pages. They make maybe a CMS or even a few static pages, and they would just make 2 main things they do, right? And then call it a day. And that kind of makes sense, but it doesn't fit into this approach because you're kind of making this, right? So that's where preparing for bigger things comes into play. And that's why I made kind of simple explanation of how this runs in most kind of supporting content builds. So what we have to focus on is just 2 types of thing. So we have main categories of things that we offer. So again, that product sorry, my bad. Categories. So that would be like categories of things we do. We might offer online marketing. We might offer content. We might offer software engineering. We might offer Webflow services. We might offer a lot of things, but we treat this as a category as opposed of being the end goal itself. Because then you can make things like Webflow development and Webflow design and content for Webflow websites and a lot of things, because then you can have those long tail keywords and pages optimized for a little bit more specific queries. Why you do that? Because in order to rank these pages, for example, to rank that when somebody types in web development, you show up first on search, it's almost impossible. What is possible is to start setting up for what you would need to do if you would say, okay, I'm going to invest whatever it takes to get to that place, right? And that requires to show that you have that authority, that experience, that relevance, and then the some parts of web development. Then you subdivide web development into parts, and then you make another CMS with more specific let's call them sub-services, right? Like smaller types of services that might be very, specific and a little bit smaller than the web development itself. Which brings us back to the blog category and article scenario. So what I just tried to explain, if anybody has any questions, drop them, was that, just like blog category, a blog about Webflow would have multiple different things you would write about, different articles, same as your service pages. Because remember in the beginning, we were talking about that whole offer versus UI UX versus content. Well, it's always merging. It's never just one or the other. It's always a mix of everything for best pages. So what happens here, that your offer is this and that, and you can do, you have this product, you solve this problem, you have this feature on your software and things like that. But we lose a lot of value by just not getting the part where web development actually branches out into a lot of different niches, and there's a lot of different tasks or problems that you might be solving with web development. So like having a good checklist of what actually web development is, and then creating a page for each of those checklist items globally helps this page grow, as in it shows that, hey, web development page links to this was service, sorry. So yeah, links to different service pages that are just smaller things, that you do under the umbrella of web development. So I think it's time for anybody to ask questions if they have any, because it would be awesome to see where we can go with this. And while we're at it, I will show, for those who were with us for quite a while, let me maybe make this a little bit smaller so it kind of scales down. Well, so this is, actually I have to make it bigger. So I took this from another board we had when Marcel was here, and we made this kind of board that explains different, I think you don't see it well enough, and I have to match it to some sort of scale that kind of makes sense for this. Let me know if you don't see it. What do you mean optimism and viewers' abilities? Please reiterate. I really want. I love your optimism about your viewers' abilities and your expertise. What do you mean, Sergey? Really want to get the where we're going with this, because maybe I can re-explain some stuff or just revisit. Live example of just like a site that has something like this, like some sort of this type of nesting. Yeah, well, it's not only for SEO, it's just in general when you think about it. I can actually show a very bad design example, which is our website, which is still currently very much work in progress. Before we jump into that, just one quick thing. I'm gonna finish this off. We had a video about where we spent 2 hours analyzing different types of businesses and whether or not they need SEO. And in the end, with Marcel, we came with this list where it's like, okay, so these businesses need to think about SEO quite a lot. Then there's this in-between section that need to both think about SEO and not. So we have these three over here. And then we have types of businesses that should focus on other channels, so not SEO, right? So if you're in one of these industries, you should probably understand that it's not very important for you. And by the way, agency and wholesaler, we moved a little bit to the side, as you can see, because they can have benefits and they still need to think about it, but they should not start with that. So yeah, so don't forget that when we're talking, there are, and you say SEO, we have these these types of businesses that really should focus on that. And the location and services and location based, these should really understand the fundamentals, even if in the beginning it's not going to help them a lot, but still by just understanding from the get-go how this will work and how this comes into play, we would need to kind of plan from the get-go. And if you have these kind of one of these businesses, then you probably have different things to solve for, even though events still kind of have SEO, but when you have thousands of events. So for very big event sites, it's not true, but for if you just do one-off things, it's not the way, right? Okay, I was saying examples. Thanks, it means a lot. So yeah, smaller e-commerce. Well, e-commerce is this thing where it's both easy and hard. But yeah, if you want to sell on your own site, not on other platforms, you should. But you know what? Actually, just understanding how to sell on other platforms, on your own platform, how would that work, helps you to be better on bigger platforms. So for example, if you understand how e-commerce, building a successful e-commerce, wait, I'm going to make this a little bit like that. So if you understand what it takes and how much energy and how much money and how much different things and how many different rules and how much like architecture and infrastructure you have to add for e-commerce, but then in the beginning you decide to go for just, let's sell it on Etsy, or let's just sell on Amazon, or let's just, I don't know what other platforms are there. Shopify now introduced Shop app or something. I haven't tested it, but I'm really curious about to find out how it is, because why not give all your data to AI? It's always a good idea. Just by doing so, you're going to be way much more successful on those platforms because you understand how naming things work, what is in context thing, how to fill up categories full with everything they need to have. There's like a lot of things that kind of carry through because those big companies that you are selling in their behalf, for example, here in Netherlands, we have bol.com, which is basically local Amazon. You can get anything tomorrow, like even today, if you want to. So yeah, so that's why like understanding these things are, I think, mandatory for any kind of website developer, designer, or even company starting out, because if you don't get how this whole complexity in the long run works, then you start making fundamental mistakes in the beginning, and then later somebody needs to come in and fix them. It's like, it's like bad design or bad development. Like if you don't name your classes in Webflow correctly, then nobody can fix your build. They have to remake it. So same happens when sites are not structured properly from the beginning. If I come in, I don't need to change name from article to blog or whatever just because you guys named it this way before. But if you don't have some fundamental things, we might need to really rethink a lot of things. So yeah, all right. I can show one example. Let me load this up for you, which is, I'm not a designer, so our site is kind of very much work in progress. And I'm also, glad not to have enough time to work on it. So this is a good example of kind of how I approach things, and it might show you like some insight, right? So I have to show you this and share screen. What was it? This one. All right, so we have two different types of CMS on our site, right? And homepage, for example, is not following the rules I told you, but for a lot of reasons, because I still haven't went to it. And also, let's don't forget that, remember, we were saying that, wait, I'm going to make this like this. And remember, we were saying agency is not one of those that get leads through SEO. Easily. So I'm not focusing too much on that. I'm focusing more on other stuff. But in reality, we have 4 categories of services we offer. So think about this as content, but I write in that our blog post just because I want it to be more more anybody understands this friendly. And then we have SEO itself. We have link building, which I just call outreach. And we have website management as a whole. We take care of your website. You don't hands-off approach. You have a team. Wait, if I hover out of it, then you don't see it. So yeah. And then we have website management, which is completely just like we take care of everything. And your team can focus on your business, and we focus on your site, right? But if you go there, right, we get this metric fuck ton of cards that are different types of services we offer. And if you go into each one of those, you land on a page which again does the same thing, but now we're inside service. So, Sergey, does that start making sense, or not really? Do I need to pedal back and then find this again? But again, one more time. So if we go to content, right? Our main H1 is Webflow Content Agency. Okay, cool. But there, to prove that we're a Webflow Content Agency, we have different types of services that we offer, right? And all of them are clickable. So you can go to a specific type of another H1, which provides context. And this one, for example, is a dummy page, which I haven't still finished, right? So you see, I'm still haven't filled out fields, and it's just, and it's de-indexed on that's a good example of how these things work. You kind of always grow sites and change them, right? But if we go to something else, maybe like, so yeah, we're just offering blog post writers, and that's what we're offering. And blog article writing for your Webflow site is the thing. And then we also show some relevant stuff that kind of makes sense out of those side branches, right? So again, this is all done with 2 CMSs. We have one that lists out main categories of our content, and they have a design, right? And as you can see, the design kind of doesn't change fundamentally, right? It's running on the same kind of pattern. And then we have another CMS, which is what happens if we go, these are probably didn't fill up a lot, but yeah. So, and if you go into something more specific, for example, product descriptions, you would go inside, and then we offer product description writing services, and yeah, and it's still empty, you see. So not all of it's filled out. I know that like 80% of all the CMS are filled, but yeah, that kind of explains, right? Because on paper, it kind of looks, when you're talking about it out loud, it kind of makes less sense than when you see it. That's why, like, if it can be a link block, and it can be a separate CMS, and that usually happens like whenever you have a checklist of anything, like any type of content you have, right? Any type of content you have, if there's like a checklist, it's usually best case that every list in that list of checkpoints, every one of them should be probably links to something. So when you start thinking from that perspective, whenever you can subdivide something into specific pages, and I can actually jump back to that example just a little bit more. Wait, how do I do it? Yeah, like this, right? So that's how it kind of works. Let's do SEO because I think it's the most filled out category, and it's nothing is still most of it's indexable. But so, for example, yes, we want to rank for a Webflow SEO agency, but it's not going to be easy because there's many players out there, right? So to support ourselves in this journey of ranking for a Webflow SEO agency, we are making what we call long tail keyword pages that are just, technical SEO for Webflow websites, because that's another search intent. Somebody might type that into Google, and we might show up as a solution for technical SEO for Webflow websites specifically. In theory, you could rank for technical SEO with the same page that I showed before, but if it's some sort of different thing that we can offer, then we do the different thing, right? And that's how we do it. And then here we think about the user that might start their journey here. So they typed in technical SEO for Webflow websites, and they landed on this page. Then we start thinking, okay, so what kind of information, what kind of content, what do we need to show here for them to be kind of, okay, so let's try out this agency, and then we do we show a few relevant things we do, just as we did. So first, imagine it's your first time here. That's how you have to think about every page. Like, oh, it's my first time ever here, right? And then I start scrolling and I see, okay, so these guys can do this and that, and they do internal linking and do international SEO, and they can optimize my website. All right. I don't click on any of this. I just scroll down to find a CTA and I just click on it, right? But in theory, for SEO purposes, these have to be clickable, right? And I'm definitely going to press on something again that is empty, for sure, like always. No, this is not empty. Okay, so another good example is implementing structured data for Webflow websites or schema markup, right? We do that, so we have a page for that. And if somebody specifically types that into Google, they might find us. Exponentially as our website, trust in our website grows, right? So yeah, and then we give a few things only for here that kind of make sense for somebody who's here to make them easier for them to convert. But at the same time, it's relevant information, and we can walk around the CMS forever like that. You see, we never kind of stop unless I didn't fill it in like here. Okay, so this is not, yeah. So that's what I say always when I say websites are never done. It's always like some sort of work in progress, and things like that. All right, so how it translates to e-commerce, for example, do you have some good SEO commerce example? Yeah, Best Buy. Wait, let me look for something. All right, so Best Buy, let's do, by the way, I don't know if it's a good example, but I know it's gonna be a good example. Oh, right. All right. So let me jump back to this. Yeah. So when you think about it, you come to the, oh, sorry, my bad. I'm gonna, yeah. So when you come to something like Best Buy, you have this insane amount of categories. Then you have insane amount of, wait. I have to be in, how do I, all right. So look, so if you really think about it, I'm trying to zoom in so your all guys you see, but the UI is horrible, right? But at the same time, they have categories, they have subcategories of those things. So if I go to something like computer and tablets, we have different types. And then we go to tablets, then we have even subcategories of stuff. And then at the end of it, so 3 layers deep, we find this. But you might not know that, okay, maybe these, it can be all done with, theoretically, with one CMS with cross-referencing fields within itself. So you can, in theory, just done this with one category, as long as you have categories of things, and then you have the things itself, right? We're looking at things itself, right? So that's as simple as that. Yeah, and why I say, Best Buy is a good example is I usually like to, whenever somebody asks this, to show something ugly intentionally, just to kind of prove that, look, if you land on this web page and we run a crawl for, I don't know if you see this, by the way. Yeah, you see. There's links, and it highlights all the links. There's quite a few of links, and it's always a link of a link. Everything is just links to everything. So that's what you do. And then one more thing I have to show for e-commerce for Sergey, but first I want to click out and let's Google something, something very competitive. Best gaming laptop. We're just going to look for, Diablo 4 is pre-installing as I'm chatting here. So let's on that vibe. Let's look for, all right, so we want to look for a search query that is actually products category, not a blog post. So wait, I know this doesn't make sense because I'm doing something in the background. So I'm just going to type in buy in the beginning, which we're going to turn this into an actual shop as opposed of, all right. Let's try something less competitive because it's all blog posts. Wait. All right. Okay. All right, I'm back. Sergey, hope you're still looking at this. All right, so we're looking for best gaming mouses, and there's two types of content that can rank for queries like that. That both kind of answer search intent because they're both identical. Just one of them are store categories that has a list of different mouses, and others are blog posts that list out different mouse. In theory, it's the same thing from the logic of we're just linking to different types of mouses and we're just linking to different types of mouses. But some of them can be just affiliate sites that have a content page that kind of just updates it refreshly. And some of them can be just actual places where you can buy that, right? So that's why when you type in best gaming mouse, what we get is, first we get Tom's guide. And if I would click on this, it's definitely going to be just, you see like 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. It's just going to be definitely just a content site. But we also have Best Buy, right? And if we click on it, I hope I didn't. Yeah, we land in the category. So it's different type of content, which is kind of the same at the end, but it's same search intent. And why does Best Buy rank below? Well, just because of when you write a listicle post that lists out best gaming mouses, right? We get the more content in between headings and just kind of explaining more about each mouse, as opposed to a category page, which usually doesn't have that a lot of about each product. You have to click in. So, yeah, and we land here, and okay. Let's scroll down. And at the end, we find this text, which is filled with links, with games, gaming keyboards, controllers, gaming mouse pads, you see, remember that internal linking that I was kind of explaining? That's what's happening here. And usually this text is way much longer, but because Best Buy is an insanely big authority site, it doesn't need to do that much, but they still must do it. They still must have, a few hundred words here and have to link to relevant stuff that makes all the sense in the world. And then we still have mouse. Now, if we would come back and probably look for some other shop that is still a shop, but is kind of, I'm trying to kind of find, because also I'm location based, so I'm getting websites that are not, maybe there's the store. Yeah, I would need to kind of prepare, but there's usually scenarios. Oh, you know what? I know one scenario actually, which is kind of, you want me to show one more scenario that might open this, and we're going to be done with the screen for the stream. So let me look for it, which is not going to be e-commerce, but it's going to explain the same concept entirely, right? Let's go to BetterHelp, right? Okay, and this is going to explain the same exact content. So now another site that's properly structured, it's not an e-commerce site, so you would think, oh, okay, so it's going to run on different rules, but it's, sorry, let's go, let's do this. So you would think, but then it's running on different rules. Now it doesn't run on different rules. That's the magic. When you get this concept, then you start seeing it everywhere because it's must. So let's go to BetterHelp. Let's don't go to the sponsored page because I'm streaming, it's a little bit lagging. Let's now go to the sponsored page because sponsored page usually will be different. All right, so we're here at BetterHelp. You would think, oh, this site is not running on the same rules, but it kind of does, because we're gonna soon find out why. So if we go to the end and we go to define the therapist, look what it is. This is just 2 CMSs listed out for us, links to everything. Right? And also, design kind of starts changing. The deeper we go, the less cool designs we see, because some websites are never done. It's normal, right? All right, so let's go to find a therapist. We go here, and then we just find we have 2 different CMS. So in this case, we would have city CMS and we would have state CMSs. Okay, all right. Let's click on one of them. So let's do, San Francisco or something. Just because I'm streaming, it's a little bit lagging. All right, so I'm in San Francisco, and again, I get the same thing. It's a list of things, which is just in this case therapists, but it can be products, it can be our services, whatever it needs to be. Okay, all right, and then this text at the end, which is, as you can see, is what ranks this page for therapists in San Francisco, because we have links to what is a therapist. This is probably going to be, you see, therapist is linking to their page, which we just were, so it's spinning again together. We have a lot of things. At the end, we will have other cities that are links to cities that are similar to San Francisco, because we're trying to help San Francisco as well as help those cities to rank, because these cities want to link for, I don't know, I cannot pronounce any of these, so I'm not going to just say San Bruno. So, for example, we want to help San Bruno rank, so we'll link to it. We link to articles. Whenever we publish an article, we even have things like this paragraph. Who doesn't love this paragraph? But it's mandatory because we want to show that experience. Yeah, we know what zip codes we can, help in with these zip codes and things like that and such and such. That's always running on the same matrix. Everything is kind of nested together to form this coherent system that can be scalable. Got it? Yeah? I really would like to chat now because I think, I hope you got it, because it's really, at the end, is the same thing. If we come back to, okay, I'm going to stop sharing this. And we come back to finish the stream for whoever is watching this later to make this as coherent as possible. So with these examples, these nice examples, let's share my screen and come back to, right, this one. All right, so with these examples, we just kind of proved this. We had here, top. I don't remember what I had actually here to make this vague. I don't know, make topic, but whatever. We always have this underlying logic of everything is connected to everything, but at the same time, it's still trying to make sense in the real world. So instead of trying to make a site that just has whatever we need from the get-go, we try to plan what would be there if the website would be finished, which we know it will never be. So then we try to group everything into most important subparts, and that's when we create CMS collections and make designs for them, even if they have one element. Like even if you have just one, for example, in this, we had the, even if your agency only does web design, still you plan that maybe it's going to grow, which, by the way, not necessarily every time I'm right, but when we're thinking about SEO, we're thinking in these terms. So we're thinking that this is going to grow, and we're going to have more and more and more and more, and we're going to have different things. So yeah, so determining what is at the category level. Oh, sorry, I'm going to hear. Determining what is at the category level, what is at the topic level, and what is the smallest piece we can have. It can be many things. Helps us kind of, plan pages and make sure that we have everything we need and every type of page we need. Yeah, that's pretty much it. If anybody, I hope, Sergey, you love this. That's the whole deal of this stream. So whoever's watching this afterwards, try to jump in every Thursday. We're streaming at the same time. We usually have guests. When we don't, I try to kind of just pick a topic that kind of makes sense for that week for me, and then we try to kind of dive deeper, and the more the merrier. So then we kind of just try to understand certain, yeah, thanks, man, it means a lot. Smash that like button, everybody, give it a subscribe. Well, I mean, if you're typing comments, then you subscribe, but those who didn't, it helps a lot. And yeah, so we're gonna be, I think, ending for this week. And for those just maybe joining in now, which probably you aren't, we just were talking about different types of pages, and that there's like underlying simple logic behind any website. And it's not as hard as it seems, but when you start, as Sergey said, where did you say that? You said it's here. It's like math. You recognize the numbers, but you don't grasp the formula. And the formula is usually like a few layers of nesting. And you have to think about what is the smallest part, what is the middle part, and what can group those two different parts together. Doesn't matter if you run software business, doesn't matter if you run an agency, e-commerce store, or anything. There's always like underlying SEO logic, and it's all based not on actual SEO. It's usually based on actual usability and actual logic. What would be helpful for visitors? Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks, guys, everybody, for joining in this week. This was awesome. Thanks, Sergey, a lot. And this really means a lot. And I hope this was kind of at least a little bit helpful or just fun, at least entertaining. That I could take entertaining. All right, guys, bye, everybody. And we're going to see you next week. I still don't know if we're going to have a guest. If anybody has any guest ideas, by the way, drop me them on Twitter. I would love to kind of hear what you guys think. So let me show you the Twitter thing. All right, so if you want to share with me and if anybody's not following me on Twitter, then just follow me on Twitter and at Search Historian, where the fun part is that it's an H1 historian. So if you follow me there and just want to DM me or just tag me to somebody that you think would be interesting to have here, I would love to hear what you guys what kind of talks we would need to have. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Maria. Thanks, Sergey. Thanks, everybody who was here the whole time. Bye, and see you next week.